Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Mark Twain is supposed to have said, "Everybody complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it." It turns out that that was said by a man named Charles Dudley Warner, and Twain quoted him, but no one remembers that, and everyone gives Twain the credit. Well, this week we are looking at stories in the Bible where rain is involved. And today might be the one story where everybody complained about it. We're going to look at the story of Noah. Now, you know the story, I'm sure, how it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and the whole earth flooded, and how Noah took animals on the ark to preserve the future of life on earth. But there's so much more behind the story in Genesis 7. Let's start with the numbers. In the Bible, the number 40 is seldom intended to mean the actual number 40. We used to think it meant simply a long time, but in recent years scholars think it means something like as long as it takes. That would mean that when it rains for 40 days and 40 nights, it did rain a long time. But even more importantly, it rained as long as it takes to flood the whole earth. Now that's a lot of rain. And in fact, I'm not sure that they really perceived it as rain either. You see, they believed that in creation, God made a space between the waters above and the waters beneath, and that in that space was where the dry land was made. So in their cosmological view, there was water below the land, and there was water above the dome of the sky. When it rained, they understood that God was allowing some of the water above to come through. So when it rained this much, so much to flood the entire earth, then they understood that God was no longer holding back the waters above or below, and the floodgates had been opened. It was a disaster of the first magnitude. And as far as people complaining, well, I bet all those who weren't on the ark complained loudly and long until they perished. And I imagine it got pretty tiresome on that ark as well, and Noah and his family might have complained a bit as it dragged on and on. Nevertheless, they knew God was with them. Maybe there's something else we should note about all this. Let's jump ahead to the end of the story when Noah sees the rainbow and understands it as God resting his bow or his weapon and hanging it in the sky. Even to this day, we see a rainbow as a sign of hope and new beginnings. But I think it's even grander than that. You see, in order to see a rainbow, the sun has to be behind you, and there has to be water droplets in the air in front of you. So that means that after all that rain and water, when it rained as long as it takes to flood the whole earth, and only Noah and his family and a few animals survived to rebuild, and they were on that land finally and in sore need of hope and new beginnings, and God gave a sign of all that, at that moment it was still raining. There was sunshine and water in the air. So maybe we are called to remember that, and to remember that when the sun comes out in our lives, when we experience hope and new beginnings, at that same time for someone else, perhaps it's raining. And perhaps we are called then to have compassion and understanding for those where things don't look so bright. And maybe what all this says even more deeply is that in our sunshine and in our rain, God is with us. God gives hope and new beginnings, no matter what. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.